All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. I know I'm here standing between you and some beverages, so I appreciate everybody making it here to the presentation. As you mentioned, I'm Sandra Baker. I've been managing the automation team at Vantiv for over a year now. So I'm here to talk to you today about our continuous testing and how Vantiv is maturing in our test automation. For those of you who don't know who Vantiv is, other than maybe a top Tricentis customer at this point, we are a payments processing company, and we are a top US acquirer. We have nearly 25 billion transactions a year that we're processing, and that adds up to nearly 1 trillion volume transactions that we're doing annually. You may have also seen in the news that recently we're going through a merger with WorldPay. This is a $10 billion merger, and this will make Vantiv a global company. So that's going to be a huge step for Vantiv. We're very excited about it and see what WorldPay has as far as their QA space. So our road to maturity. Last year, as was mentioned, Raj was here to talk to you guys about what Vantiv did to get started with automation, how they got started with the proof of concepts and started automating different technologies. But then we needed to start executing the test cases, right? Because they're only useful if we're actually executing them. So we focused on our distributed execution and unattended execution. Moved into some maturity, working on how do we continue to mature the capabilities and add additional capabilities to what we're doing. Finally, we're going to focus on continuous delivery, what a lot of people call DevOps, and that was, where we want to achieve and go. I'm sure some of you have experienced this problem before, that we don't automate because we don't have time, and we don't have time because we don't automate. You have regression suites that don't get maintained. People don't have time. So we've experienced that challenge as well, and we're working on some ways, and I'll talk about some ways that we're kind of helping the teams to cope with those issues. So at the start, as we talked about, we got engaged about 3 years ago with Tricentis, doing some proof of concepts to ensure that the capability works for us. And we chose Tricentis Tosca tool as the tool that we wanted to proceed with for automation. We did an assessment of our applications and prioritized those so that we could focus on the most critical applications, automating over 15 platforms at this point. Being as large of a company, we've got many different platforms, many different challenges and technologies, and we're already actively automating over 15 different platforms just in that few years. In the last 15 months, we've experienced 300% growth in our regression suite, so it's been a huge growth just very quickly to create automation suites, and now we need to start executing those. 70% of our teams are now automating, and almost all of our team is certified. I think yesterday there was some statistics about the certifications, online certifications, and how the growth has been, and we're definitely part of that because we've got nearly 100 people certified in Tosca, and we continue to encourage further certifications as well. We continue to grow our automation. Obviously focusing on continuous testing. That's what we're all here to talk about, is our continuous testing. This is our focus. We want to start seeing our benefits. We had a team that would take 1 to 2 weeks to manually test a regression suite before they could do production deployment. Now they have a 400 test case automated suite that they're able to execute just in a few hours. This is really saving time to market and just speed to market and ability to do more in less time. We focus on our unattended execution using DEX. There's a booth out there on DEX, so hopefully everybody got to learn a little bit about DEX and how you can utilize that. We're really focused on utilizing DEX as much as possible. We've also decided, well, what else can we do with this automation? How can we expand? We're able to create test data for different types of testing. We have our user acceptance testing that we're creating test data for. We have end-to-end testing and even performance testing where we're creating data to be able to use for different testing. We also realized that our environment needed to become more mature. We need to get some virtual machines so that we can scale to the size that we now have become with that many automated test cases. So we're working on that. along with service virtualization. We've already stood up some service virtualization. We have that in place for some of our teams, and we're working with our application partners to see how we can shift testing left with service virtualization. People being the core of what we do, we continue to focus on the people that we have, training, the workshops. We recently had Tricentis on site for a maturity workshop, focusing on what we need to learn. And we do monthly training internal as well to focus on what our team needs and what we need to improve on. Earlier this year, we met with our application team and owners, and we came up with what we wanted our continuous testing process to look like, what you might call also the DevOps model. So we wrote down how we wanted the data to flow from business requirements, which we can bring into Tosca to show our requirement coverage, then go through the automated deployment, have a smoke test suite run, successful smoke test suite. Now we run our regression and move into automated deployments. We're using tools like Jenkins and XL Release and XL Deploy to integrate into our environment, and so that we can have the continuous testing cycle. Earlier today, Wolfgang talked about the maturity model for Tricentis, and Vantiv also came up with our own maturity model so that we could start to measure our teams where they are with automation. We came up with 4 different levels that we're measuring our teams against and the different criteria that we're using to measure them. We baselined everybody and put them in their current level, and then we continue to track those levels and encourage the teams to mature, and we build our goals on that. Our automation architects and engineers are constantly focused on how we can remove roadblocks so that the team can become most mature. When Tricentis did come on site for the maturity model in the workshops, we talked a little bit about what some of our challenges are, right? And we all have some challenges. Of course, I'm sure nobody's experienced an automated suite that never got updated, right? Because we all keep everything up to date all the time. But we started to experience some of those challenges, and Tricentis worked with us closely to come up with a model where we could make our automation more agile. We want to ensure that every sprint, the team is working on their automation, addressing any failed test cases, and executing regularly. Executing regularly, we determined, was really key to ensure that we're keeping our regression suite up to date, functional, and that we can get value out of that. To do that, we also want to ensure we're running on distributed execution. Again, and unattended execution is key. We don't want the users having to execute on machines, and we want the machine to do it in the background without any user interference. Finally, we're looking at how we can grow our capabilities, right? So we've implemented a lot of different Tricentis capabilities throughout the years already. We talked about service virtualization. We recently did a proof of concept for Tosca BI. We're one of the first customers for Tosca BI and big data on our Hadoop platform. We also continue to work on the risk-based testing. We have exploratory testing. And I know at the beginning we all had the no manual testing and stickers, which we definitely want to order some of those because we want to focus on our exploratory testing, reduce the manual testing, focus on automation, and get rid of manual testing altogether. Metrics, we report regularly. We use Tosca Analytics, and we've looked in how do we report dashboards and what makes sense to show as far as coverage and risk. So we continue to work on how we can improve our metrics and dashboards and reporting. And finally, we're huge in end-to-end testing. We have a complex environment with many systems. End-to-end testing is critical to what we do. And we want to look at how we can tie all of our automation together so that it goes through end-to-end automation from the start all the way down to the finish. So we've really enjoyed our partnership with Tricentis. We've learned a lot, and we'd like to continue to work with Tricentis to mature our automation, focus on continuous testing, and grow our capabilities.